Good morning. Hello, everybody. How are we doing on this wonderful, freezing cold UK morning? For me, anyway. But great to be here. And we've got some cool stuff lined up for this morning. So whoever's here, do say hello in the chat. Even if you're lurking. All right. Wow. -5. That's a lot colder than here. I think we're probably about 3 degrees. I'm guessing. But not -6. Enzo, hi, how are you doing? We've got Sean. Hello, Sean. Good morning. WC, good day. And we've got Mech. What a pleasure. Hi. And Perplexity. So this morning, because it is all about habits this morning, all I can say is it's quite structured for me. So there's a bit of a structure to what we're going to do today. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a free write, which will take approximately 15 minutes to do. And we're just going to find out basically what, the idea of this is to find out what you actually want to do. So before we sort of kind of do any of this, knowing what you're going to do next is the route to success. Sometimes when we don't know what we're really doing, things get a bit difficult. I mean, it's like, well, what are you working towards? So even though, having said that, when you do find out what you want, that doesn't mean it's in concrete either. Okay, it's really a starting point to kind of just get you moving. Okay, so that's another thing I'd just like to say when it comes to sort of planning things. Okay, or it could be like how you want to develop your guitar playing, or your basically music productions, or your music business, all these things, right? Okay, it's perfectly fine to course correct. That's okay, but you do need something to get moving. So yes, it's great to see everybody on here. Perplexity. Great gig with McLaughlin yesterday. Yeah, I was. I like the experimental angle, but I was probably getting stressed with the guitars because I wasn't expecting it. And I thought, actually, I think this is a really good idea, so I'm going to do it. But it was really interesting going from a 7-string to a Strandberg back to my guitar, because they all felt alien by the end. It was just like, whoa, what's this? Especially that Strandberg. Because I would have loved to have measured the necks, actually, between that and the Kiesel, because I'm sure it was thinner this way. I just felt thinner, but I think it could be just an optical illusion because this fretboard is angled in. It looks like there's nothing there. That's very strange. Very strange. It's interesting how that angle kind of works on it. It goes around the back. It's yeah, very interesting. So anyway, so we're going to find out what you want to do. So the first part of call is we're going to do a free write. The free write is divided into 3 sections. Okay, hi Angus, how are you doing? Good to see you on here. Cool. So the free write, it's divided into 3 sections. So we're all going to need, well, not so much me because I've got to actually do the prompting, but you are going to need a pen and paper. So has everybody got a pen and paper? That's the Slayer song. Bible Black. Very good. So pen and paper at hand, and we'll start. But I just need a bit of coffee at the minute. Right. Does anybody want to ask me anything before we start? We've got the timer here. Like I've thought of everything, right? So I'm quite excited actually for this morning because I've never, like, despite doing, the conditions of success, like this kind of thing was the first thing I did pre me actually then getting coached, right? So this was the conditions of success. It was sort of like an online course I did with the guy who ended up coaching me, Mike. So it was the first thing, and I got a lot of success out of it, believe it or not. Like literally, it was a 6-month program, and I did it twice, and I think a lot of cool things happened, and I appeared on his radar, and then we ended up talking, and then I ended up coaching for him and being trained. But yes, I remember it really. I mean, the thing that really happened for me was it got me doing something consistently. And seeing everything to the end. And, that ended up getting me a publisher. It ended up getting me my first deal, single release, which then ended up going into like well over 100, 122 is the number that I lost, but it's more, before I stopped counting, before I came, really addicted to releasing music. So, like this particular thing it really got things going, and then after that, it was all about kind of refining really and making the process super, super slick. Discord. Right, so with the Discord, I think it's a good thing to like have sort of there when I'm dotted about, because it's kind of there because I'm experimenting with the Discord. However, it's kind of useful at times, and then it's just kind of there, isn't it? So I'll tell you what is useful about Discord is if you're on there, what I'm going to do is there's a whole presentation like slide thing I'm going to do next. So we're going to do a 15-minute free write. And then I've got like a little. Then I'm going to take you through habit making, okay? And I've worked hard today for this. Right? I've got like a little presentation we can fly through, which I haven't practiced, but it's cool. And then I'm going to drop in those notes, the show notes, into the Discord so people can get it from there. Okay. So don't worry about Discord at the minute. The other thing about Discord is because we've been doing track feedback, okay? Because we're doing track feedback, one of the things is it's just easy and convenient for people to put the tracks on there, and then, I can do stuff. The other thing about Discord is sometimes when we have discussions, it can make a really good talking point for on here, So I think it's a useful thing if you get my drift. And I do sometimes put resources on there for people. And also a great opportunity for you guys to talk to each other when I'm not about. All right. So does that make sense, Enzo? Can't put that there, can I? All right, pens and paper at hand, okay? So we're going to work out what you want. Now, the first thing, okay, is we're going to write, okay? You're going to write about your music. So what I want everybody to do is imagine yourself making like the best possible music you've ever made, okay? So imagine yourself like just this amazing music coming out of your speakers, right? And what I want you to do is I want you to describe it. Even if you're not sure, just start, okay? Now, the thing with free writing, we haven't quite started yet. When I do the timer, we'll start. The thing about free writing, okay, is you just got to start writing the first thing that comes to mind. So, and this will be hugely liberating if you do this, right? For example, Okay, you might start writing, what's Tim on about? That Hutch guy. Oh, God, I wish he'd just play guitar and shut up. It's much better when he does a guitar lesson. Like, at least it's like something I can do instead of listening to this waffle. Oh, but anyway, my music. I'm imagining a really 7-string heavy guitar here, and I'm playing like some really serious, like Phrygian mode thing at about 140 BPM. There are synthesizers in the background, and I've got these wonderful and then it starts happening. Okay, then the music starts coming out. What you're meant to be writing about. Yeah, Sean, it's funny, isn't it? It's because, like, Sean, that's what Sean writes in his free writes. What's he on about? It's like, honestly, like, why doesn't he just play a guitar? None, everybody else does except him. You get all of this waffle. Right. So, all of the stuff kind of comes out, right? And that's what we want, okay? It's all coming out, all of it. Don't worry, I don't need to read it, okay? Whatever you write is for yourselves, right? It's not, it's for your benefit, okay? But we can discuss it, and if there's certain things that come up of interest, you can put it in the chat and ask me about it or whatever. But free writing is brilliant. Free writing is very much like it's splurge mentality, but for writing. And why are we free writing? Because free writing is a great way to break through the conscious layer of thinking. So there'll be that conscious layer of thinking of writing about how foolish Hutch is for making me do a free write in the first place, to conscious thinking about your music, like when I was going on about 7 strings and stuff like that. It's kind of there, it's conscious, and I'm kind of saying that. But eventually what will happen is those conscious ideas will run out, and then hopefully there might be a little bit of an impasse for a few seconds, and then you'll hit into the subconscious, right? And that's where all of the stuff comes out. Right. Right. I have zero focus, man. I don't know what's going on. I start a project and can't finish it. Yeah, don't worry. So this is what today is all about. Okay. I've got like, if you follow this, because we're doing habits for a month, everybody's going to be a habit, right? Everybody who comes on here is going to be a habit like ninja, and it doesn't matter what you do. It'll make you more efficient, like in your jobs. You'll all be getting promoted, right? Those of you who aren't wild, rock and roll people, your careers are, like habits are like everything, and it makes everything just so much more easier to do, because you're like basically, you're not conscious of half the stuff you do. So, just my prompter freezing there. Right, now my prompter's too bright. 1 second. So yeah, I mean that's basically why we're doing this free write study. So I hope that makes sense to everybody. So there'll be a bit of an impasse, and then sort of really interesting stuff will start coming out of the subconscious, things that you're not really consciously aware of that you think, oh, that's really interesting. I like the idea of that. Okay, so here we go. Are we ready? 5 minutes. Can everybody write for 5 minutes and write as fast as you possibly can? Okay, only you need to be able to read it. It doesn't have to be in English. It can be in whatever language you're used to. And go. Write as fast as you can. You've got 5 minutes. So, let's start. What genres, sounds, sonic textures are in this music? How is this music being defined? Now, you don't have to follow my prompts, but if you want to, you can. What genre sounds? And if it's in a genre, what sounds could be outside of that genre? What could you bring into it from other genres? Describe the melodic, the harmonic, and the rhythmic elements. What's really jumping out? What's distinctive? And remember, you're just writing. This is just it doesn't have to have happened. This is completely your imagination. This is unlimited thinking. There's nothing stopping you. There's no barriers. You can play anything you want. You've got all the resources that you need. All the education you need. And you're describing the melodic, the harmonic, and rhythmic elements in your own words. You don't have to use traditional music terminology. You can describe melodic structures as colours, or scenes, or movie, like scenes from a movie or something like that. It doesn't have to be major, minor, a mode or anything like that. But it can be. It's perfectly fine. All of that's good, however you want to express it. When you listen to your music, or when other people listen to the music, what journey does it take them on? Hi, Johnny, we're just doing a free write, so if you can catch up, we're just writing about, you've got about 3 minutes left. We're writing about how your fantasy music sounds. Music you haven't made yet, but music you want to make. And I'm just prompting everybody. What music techniques or elements would be a hallmark of your sound? Or sonic signposts, as I like to call them. What sonic signposts would be there? What emotions does your music explore? So a great way to think about music is moving somebody from an undesired state to a desirable state. Where do you want to take yourself and your listeners in your music? What is the journey? And how does the energy flow within that? Wow. 5 minutes goes really quick, doesn't it? And stop writing. No more writing. And so no more writing. I reckon you'll be still scribbling away, getting a few ideas. That's it. It's finished. Sean, put your pen down. Right. How was that? Now, get out of my head. I just know that you'll be having a sneaky little... You and Sean, I think. Oh, and here's another idea. But the point being is... You can do as many free writes as you want. I mean, like, I've used them in certain, like, project planning or things like, really when I've had to therapeutic, it's brilliant, isn't it? So, times when I've had to do, like, something really important or I've had, like, a serious meeting, I've used free writing to explore all the dimensions of my ideas and even exploring, like, how I'll feel how I imagine the room, and all these things I free write. I just write about that scenario, and it makes the whole scenario kind of more 3D, and you're more kind of the exposure of it gets you used to the stress of it, and you feel so much better. So it's incredibly powerful thing to do. All right. So we'll just have a quick look at the chat. Hi, Joe. How you doing? Sean. So, yeah, I'm in Enzo's head. Brilliant. Lots of laughter. Johnny, therapeutic. It's very therapeutic, as I said. I thought about it for the first 3 minutes because I've been writing and playing for the last 2 hours, right? Just throw yourself in there and write. Hello. Oh, thank you. You're welcome in advance. So the timer is so important, especially for someone who works better during a time crunch. Timing is absolutely brilliant. Timing tasks is a great thing. Beating the clock is just brilliant. I mean, I love flicking the timer on to 10 minutes and then trying to write a really quick idea, you know. Because the reason I have the timer is when, I've talked about being studying conditions of flow in that group for 6 months, right? While making an album. And the timing, it's just like beating the clock, having time and having consequences at the end, things that are going to get you focused, you know. Very good. We'll move on. Okay, next free write. So we've got another 2 to do. Now, what we're going to talk about is the business side. Okay? So the money side. And I know some people will be like, oh, well, I'm not that bothered about it. Okay, well, that's fine. All right, that's great. But still, your music needs to be kind of released, and other people do need to enjoy it. And part of that is, it can be monetized. The other thing about it is there's nothing wrong with actually earning money from your art. It's kind of what you're meant to be doing as artists, musicians. It's just to say, like, if we were a plumber and like Enzo was a plumber and he came around to fix my toilet, right? He would expect to be paid, right? Like, when is it, what is it with musicians that, like, this doesn't apply? You'll get people going to a bar, like, they'll say, oh, we'll do a gig here. The bar will be like, yeah, I would love a gig on here. And then, but, if it goes well, I'll pay you the next time. You just, like, nonsense, isn't it? Anyway, getting into headspace is the most challenging part. It is, and we're going to over the coming months, weeks, year, hopefully that's all going to change for a lot of people who attend these Monday sessions, because this is what we're doing on a Monday. The other thing I'd like to say is, if you come in halfway through, it doesn't matter. You can this is going to continue round on a cycle, so you can catch the free write at any time. I might just put the prompts for the free write in Discord as well. So, I mean, I haven't worked out where to put my course material for all of this, so I'll just start dumping it in Discord, and then you can get it all from there. So just somebody keep it all together for me, and then I can just, in a folder, and then I can just ask you for it back when I kind of find it, because I'm that organized now. If you make music and want it to be heard, if you have to be business minded too, son. Absolutely, Mac. Right, let's do the next free write. Music business. Okay, now I want you to imagine your thriving music career, where work is both creatively fulfilling and financially rewarding. And I want you to describe what this looks like. So, when you wake up in the morning, what's around you? Who's there with you? Who are key people in your team? Who do you need to collaborate with? What does your studio look like? Where is your studio? Do you have a studio? Maybe you're just permanently on tour. What's a particular working day, week look like? How busy are you? What sort of meeting, when you have meetings or collaborations, who are you collaborating with? Now, because of your success and because you're releasing music all the time, I want you to think about what opportunities come your way because of your success. What sort of projects and collaborations are you involved in? And bear in mind in this free write, these prompts, you don't have to be slavish over. These are only prompts just for you to follow, okay? But just write as fast as you can. And it doesn't matter if chaos comes out, good stuff will as well. How is your music being discovered and shared? So just keep writing as fast as you can. What platforms do you release on? And there we go. That is the timer. And guess what? Everybody stop writing. I have one in my memories. So I'm thinking, Stelly, because you used to be a DJ, you'll have been touring about and the whole, that kind of thing, and writing music and, you know, getting booked for your shows. I'm struggling to even make a startup template. Again, well, Stelly, you're here. All right, so just by osmosis, some of this should kind of seep in and hopefully have an effect. As I say, I'm going to do. I've got some slides I'm going to go through, and just discuss. So, you know, that's cool. But you know, you're here on these, so I mean, that's already a win. Yeah. So I have too many plugins, that is. Yeah. So, I mean, if that's a problem, what have you got to do? Can't decide what to use. This is decisions. This is month 3. We're on. I've got that whole thing. So, like, what you're saying there, Stelly, is like so many people have that problem, don't they? I mean, I did the whole thing. I had a period of like no plugins, just Ableton, and then the only third-party plugins I had was a few synths and some stuff I had to use for mastering, because like Ableton just won't cut the full master thing. Right, that's an absolutely brilliant. You see, that's a really good decision, and that's going to sort everything. Right, everybody. So as I said, no more writing. That is the money business free write. Okay. And now we're going to move on to the third and final free write. Okay. Oh, we're ready for this one, because if you missed the first 2 and you just do a free write, like this is the one that sort of concludes sort of everything and kind of gets you thinking along sort of the lines that I think. Okay. So it's really cool. This it's got a light. Check that out. I'm gonna put that on. Okay. It was this timer. I think this is only like $14 or something for that. Look at that. It's quite good quality. Love it. Right, how was that? Everybody okay? Everybody still here doing the free writing? Excellent. Because we're going to move on. We're going to move on. So, the next free write, and the important one, well, they're all important, okay? Or at least my favourite bit is this one. And that is, we're going to free write about mindset, okay? So, in other words, before I start the timer, what we're going to write about is to achieve everything that you have described in the first 2 free writes, okay? To achieve this, what would you need to change about your current mindset, habits, and approach? So, to achieve making a wonderful, amazing music, to achieve having this wonderful creative business, mindset wise, what would you have to change to achieve that? What would you have to change about your current mindset? I'm going to set the timer to 5 minutes, and we're off. Off you go, and write as fast as you can, okay? So what would you need to change about yourself? So what limiting beliefs about yourself, your music, would you need to change? Now, which of your current habits are supporting your vision? So this is important to take into consideration. So what are the strengths that you have that support the vision? And what habits hold you back, or lack of habits? What new daily practices would need to become non-negotiable in your routine? And I know I tend to leave skills sort of in the back, but what skills would you need to develop? Which could be skills towards perceived requirements. And what skills do you not need to develop anymore in order to achieve everything above that you've wrote about? What skills do you just don't need to develop that actually are holding you back because it takes a lot of time away from, finishing your art and allowing other people to enjoy it, which is the most important thing. So just keep writing as fast as you possibly can. How would you maintain creative momentum through periods of boredom or plateau? What limiting beliefs would you need to get rid of? What about focus? What do you need to change about your relationship with focus and distractions? What distractions do you need to get rid of? Very important. Enzo, you meant to be free writing. Back to work. Quick, write about distractions, because that's just one there. Getting distracted with this chat. I'll give you 30 seconds more to write. No, you're meant to be working off my timer. You're not meant to have your own timer, Enzo. No distraction with the chat. And you have to work off this timer. Not to worry. And relax. Okay, so if anybody can post in the chat any insights they got from that, sort of just anything they found surprising, or even if you want to just say, I've really enjoyed that free writing, it's the first sort of time I've done any free writing before and it was really, really good, or it might be that I haven't done free writing for a while, because I know some of you may have been coached by me, and it's been a great refresher and I'm back to it and I'm going to do more of it. Like, who found it enlightening in terms of finding sort of the direction that you want to go in? So just a couple of minutes for that and then we're going to move on. to the next section. So I'm going to take you through habits. Is the next thing, but feel free whilst I'm going through this presentation, right? Like, if there's anything you want to discuss, I'm more interested in what's sort of going on in the chat. In fact, I'm interested in all of it, like getting through these slides and getting this information to you, and also hearing kind of, things, your experiences and questions. Definitely interesting, considering the last time I did this was before I had released music. Yeah, excellent. So here we are. Atomic habits for music producers. Building a sustainable, creative practice. What do you reckon? I haven't done that necessarily like that before, but it was very helpful, and I'd like to continue. Excellent. Well, there's a really good book I suggest reading called Accidental Genius. Get it on Audible. I can never remember the guy who actually wrote it, but he's a top CEO guy, hugely successful. But that's where this comes from. Accidental Genius and the power of free writing. But atomic habits for music producers, that's what we're wanting, consistency, yeah? Now, I've got to work out how to work my slides and do this. Right. So why habits matter for creatives? So the gap between your creative vision and the execution. So, what we're talking about here really is, just becoming consistent. Consistency, will trump talent and inspiration. Fact. And I think, conditions of success are very, very interesting, because I wish somebody had actually taken me through this very early on, like at the beginning of my career. But this is all the stuff, right, that they don't do this in schools, and I think it's incredibly unfortunate that this doesn't happen, because this really gets people thinking as individuals, taking responsibility, realizing that actually they don't have to have amazingly flashy skills. Okay, that actually it's not always about that. What it is about is actually being consistent and developing something, And that's why. And when you're consistent and you're doing something, and this is why I decided to have habits before I did environment or anything like that, because what we need to be doing is we just have to be doing the thing that we're supposedly doing. And then whatever problems come from that, we use that as a really good way to create new knowledge for ourselves. So there's many, many times you'll have heard me talk about that actually, solving problems is how we create new knowledge. But what we're doing is we're solving the problems that are unique to us, okay, in line with our overall vision, which is why we did the free write, okay? Because we need to have a vague idea of sort of the direction that we're wanting to go in, And if you didn't quite get this free write, keep free writing, okay, about that till you get something more tangible. But habits is the kind of reason, a lot of things are unfinished. And I know certainly from when I first started, my music practice was all over the place. It was like piled up at the weekend, and then I would be uninspired. I had a belief that I would have to have hours and hours and hours to produce anything, okay, which is just not true, okay. And it was just very, very stressful, and I would not have a regular habit during the week. I would attempt to do things on an evening when I was tired and low attention span. And like all of that changed when I made a commitment and started doing things in the morning. And that's why I'm here in the morning, because it's a great time. You know, your attention span's at its highest, isn't it? And actually, you know, you don't need loads of time. You just need to turn up with a small amount of time. And we're going to look into that further. I'm going to set everybody sort of a few things to try out, okay? We're going to try and come up with our own sort of minimum viable commitment at some point today. Okay. Waiting for inspiration versus consistent creation, okay? From now on, right, and this is really important, okay? We don't wait for inspiration, okay? It's nonsense, right? If I was paying you to just do music every day, right, and you hadn't made any music, and I went, why haven't you made me any music? And you go, oh, I wasn't in the zone, man. That's not going to work, is it? So it's about consistency over that inspiration. And what you'll find is when you're consistent, you're inspired all the time. We don't wait for inspiration. Inspiration will come from this day forth, right? If you were a person who was believing that I have to be in the zone, it's not true. Okay? It's true that you'll feel better doing it, but you don't have to. You just have to sit down. And what you'll find is the ideas will come. And the more, same with free writing, is that you don't have any ideas when you start struggling, why am I doing this? And then suddenly a flood of ideas will come out, and it's the same for your music making. The ancient Greeks had gods dedicated to ideas and inspiration. The muse, they were all women. But the Greeks said that if you were prepared to sit down and do the work and start doing the work, that you would be rewarded with the inspiration, or you'd be rewarded with ideas. So we'll all have experienced, starting projects. In fact, I think Stelly's mentioned that. Oops, go back a slide. Starting projects but never finishing them. Overwhelming technical It's funny, this is kind of what you've been mentioning in the chat there. Overwhelming technical options, paralyzing progress. Equipment acquisition instead of musical completion. Tutorial addiction without application. I think, we've all done these, right? Now I've got to just laugh at myself at this, because this is the kind of stuff that just would just have me in knots, Overwhelming technical options, paralyzing progress. That's got to be every guitarist, doesn't it? Equipment acquisition instead of musical completion. That next thing that's going to give you the edge or inspire you, buying a bit of new big. I haven't done it for a long time yet, but I've been guilty. Even, actually not for a few years, but, I've got timeout cupboard, and I've got my timeout box. In my timeout box, I've got an OP1 and an OPZ I just don't use. It's ridiculous. I should sell them. But I won't, because I like to hang on to things. So I'm sure we've all been guilty of that. I just need to scroll down on this chat. Oh, good, you've started a project while I've been talking. Excellent, Stelly. But do listen to what I'm saying, please. In fact, sample it. Put some spoken word in. The power of atomic habits, right? Tiny regular behaviors that compound over time. Small improvements, 1%, okay? Improvement in everything you do. So when I pick a guitar up, right, I try to play and try and make my situation 1% better. So when you're in the studio, you're just aiming for 1%. If you're doing a mix, you're only aiming for 1% better. If you're singing, you're just trying to sing 1% better. And all of this compounds, but actually this 1% idea comes from the British cycling team. And this is how they became from like the worst cycling team to the best in the world, is because they took this on board. They made everything 1% better. So players were, cyclists were like washing hands better for like hygiene reasons, so there was less sickness. They were blacking out the hotel rooms so they could get better sleep. They were removing like a couple of screws from a bike to make them lighter. They were doing all of this sort of stuff. And making a 1% improvement in everything that surrounded the skill as well. So that's another thing to really be thinking about. Focusing on systems over goals, right? Thing is, like, systems can be inflexible, right? And goals can change. So one thing to bear in mind is, like, if something doesn't work, you just course correct and modify, okay? We don't worry about missing the goal, falling short of it, or ending up somewhere else. You know, our path as creatives is one of mastery, and that path isn't a straight line. If it was a straight line, it would be design, so it would be less likely to make what would be considered to be art. We need to be unique musical individuals, unique people. Our music needs to express what we're feeling, you know, that people can relate to. It's got to feel like us, because we are the most unique thing, and our music should be unique. It shouldn't be just a copy of something else, all right? So with that, and I think that's one of the things that makes like music making very complicated, is because there's no real fixed result, okay? And again, you know, I hate to sound like a broken record, but it does come down to the fact that we, as human beings, we don't like uncertainty. Uncertainty is a real issue because we don't have any data, and therefore there is fear attached into that. But actually, uncertainty is where the artist lives. That's where unique things are going to happen. So over-focusing on a system and then it not working can have a negative impact. So you have to kind of build in a certain amount of flexibility into what you do. Having said that, okay, what Stelly is talking about, when he's talking about, I'll just use, you know, the Ableton plugins, that's a really good idea because you're limiting all the decisions. Okay, so limitations in your practice is also good, because limitations gives you something to push against. And again, uncertainty, limitations, discovery, these are the areas that the artist lives in. Right, let's move on. Becoming a producer or a musician that produces, okay? I'm someone who creates regularly. We need to be thinking about this. This is a wonderful thing that happens. So when you get that regular habit dialed in and you start making music, especially when you start releasing music, and I talked about this the other week, a wonderful thing will happen, and I can promise you this, right? That you will one day wake up and you will feel in the game. You will feel your own self-validation, and you'll feel just the same as all the other artists out there who are having wonderful careers. Because making your art is the most important thing. The rest of it is just reward, isn't it? But waking up and having something consistent and having, you know, something out there in the world which also people enjoy, it doesn't matter whether you make zillions of dollars out of it or you make a few dollars or nothing, right? Because you're doing it for free, just because you're on a mission to make things better, like me, like here, you know? Just connecting and making that connection and having this wonderful creative, I would call it an ecosystem. So like literally like everything I do in my life is all part of this wonderful ecosystem that's basically a habit. You know, I'm not struggling. It's just, it's the way I am now. It's my way of being, okay? And that's totally achievable, you know, through what? Through firstly habits, and then we can start streamlining. As we come across problems, we start solving the problems. So, you know, every finished track is a vote for your producer identity, okay? Your identity isn't going to suddenly come out, okay? What you have to do is you have to practice. You have to practice, and every time you finish a track, okay, that's going to give you data, because now we wear lots of lots of hats as a producer, with a writer, with a vocalist, the guitarist, the producer, with the engineer, and all of these kind of things are interconnected, and all of these areas can be just as creative as the other, and all of these areas are places for you to project your identity, okay, and help you decide, or I would say discover who you want to be. These things are going to be uncovered through the process. And also small wins. That's what we want, just incremental steps. Doesn't matter about the big one, just every day, like that 1% is a time to improve in the limited time that you have. Time isn't a big issue, because what we're going to learn is actually we can do, once you start building habits and we start following the conditions of success, 10 minutes to you will be worth an hour of how it was, okay? Because you will be focused, you will be able to make decisions. Like if you're struggling making decisions, right, and you're doing something, you're trying to pick a kick drum for a track or something, or a drum kit, and you're like overthinking it, and you're thinking, I'll try this kit. No, it's not that kit. I'll try this kit. You imagine the time that you're wasting on that. If you could just make that decision once, okay, and allow yourself to stick to it, how much time is that going to save? So if you think about it, there's so much you can do. So we're thinking about the habit framework, right? So we have cue, craving, response, and reward. All right. So I've talked many times about my thing. So coming to these lives, or when in the past I've been doing my heavy lift writing sessions. Really, the cue is you want to create the habit around something. It's easier to do it like round something that you already do. So getting up in the morning, waking up, I do that ritually every day, thank God for now, right? So it's really easy to then immediately go, from the bed to here. I mean, I do brush my teeth and go to the toilet, guys, just in case, and girls, if you're just wondering about that, I don't suddenly, but I get up, I get ready, and I come straight into the studio, switch everything on. In fact, everything that I do in the process, it's always the same every morning. I get up, the first thing I do is stand on my feet and then switch everything on, okay? Then I run upstairs, then I go switch the kettle on, get that boiling, go to the toilet, come back down, brush my teeth, come back down, get dressed, and then the kettle's boiled because I'm trying to beat the kettle, and then go and make my coffee, and then get here, and set up whatever I need to set up. So there's a whole kind of cue for doing that. And the other thing is like craving. You want to make sure, and this can't be all the time because we've just got to sit down regardless whether we want to do the thing or not. Part of being professional and being successful is being able to do the thing when you don't want to do it. All right, because usually what happens is it's always, it's the inspiration thing. The inspiration comes, but you can make things attractive. Like think about, things like, all right, taking away. Well, how many guitars are too many? Well, I've got to have a few guitars on display as I'm endorsed. But one guitar is fine. You can put the rest away. But when we're talking about craving, maybe you'll treat yourself to a guitar. One guitar that you've been meaning to play in. Or there may be a plugin that you really want to use, and you can just give yourself that one plugin and get excited about that. Okay, or you do like a new template. So a new template can get you sort of excited, or just having your wins in the process and turning up. All of these are ways to kind of crave that experience. But I think like one of the things to make your music is addictive. We need to think about addiction and how can we make it addictive. And also you want to make it easy. So we'll be talking about environment, but do what you can. Whatever you're going to do when you're going to start your habit of making music or practicing music or whatever it is you're doing, you want to make sure it's easy, like really easy. So like, like beginners will like get the guitar and they'll keep putting in the case. No, I didn't do any practice because I had to get out the case and then I have to set it up and plug it in the amp. There's all this thing. But you don't do that. You just, everything's out and it's there where you need it. The things that you need and just the minimum of what you need is there, okay? And you can just, without distraction, plug it in, hit record, and you're away, okay? So if you're building like a template, think about beats plus 3. So if you think of your template like a band for now, you're going to have your drums, you're going to have a bass, you can have your bass, and you have your guitar, and maybe you're singing. But your guitar could be the lead and the rhythm. You keep it simple, and you splurge ideas, not focusing on results. That's all you need, right? Bang, 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 bang. And then reward, be good to yourselves. If you do these things, maybe at the end of the month you can treat yourself to a plug-in. So I've probably covered all of this. So yes, think about your studio setup for now. I'm not going to go too much into detail about this because this is going to be month 2 as we're going to really go into environment. DAW templates, okay? Yeah, there we go. I better charge it. No, I'll do it later. I'll charge it in the car. There's 20% on there. So yeah, we're thinking about DAW templates, and we're thinking about when are we going to do our habit. So these are other things. So as I say, for me, the morning is the best time. And then we've got habit stacking. Because when we get one good habit, they can lead to other ones. So sometimes what you'll find is you can do your studio session, okay? And then you'll feel, once that's finished, you may be up for some guitar playing and some practice because you may have been recording a solo and then that'll have brought up certain issues that you need to practice. So I get incredibly inspired off doing this. How do you find me on Discord? The Discord link is in the about for this channel, Enzo. Or what Stelly said. Right. What was I talking about? So yeah, so like, the habit stacking thing. So it may be like when certain issues come up when you've been recording a solo that actually it becomes really good. It kind of enlightens you in terms of like what sort of areas of your technique or knowledge you need to expand. So obviously, connecting with other people is another good thing, and sharing work can be highly motivating. So if there's other music producers about that or that we have the Discord, you can use the Discord and you can share your work with each other. You can also, there's a coaching room and there's an accountability room as well. So you can actually use the accountability room to say that I'm going to do this week these things. All right. And then technically the community, in a nice way, can hold you accountable to that. But I think like when we're trying to do stuff and we kind of make it public, like this is what I'm going to do this week, it heightens our chances of actually doing that thing. So yeah, do use the Discord for that. So yes, yeah, and then also just think about that you get to create music. It's a real privilege to be able to do that. But I also think, having a little bit of grit of having to finish a track is still okay, but not primary. You want music to be something that you just do. You're not thinking about it. It's not this separate thing of your life. You are a musician. You are an artist. And it's just part of the air that you breathe. Right, so make it easy. So we need to think about making it easy. Think about what you need to do, okay, or what you need to remove to get into that studio, okay? What's the quickest time you can be set up? I mean, when I started doing this, I realized that I went to an extreme. I ditched all of my studio and I ended up with a MIDI keyboard, a laptop and some headphones, and I made sure that I could be mobile. So my daughter at the time was very young, and she would go to like lots of different activities. So we had things like Explore Learning. So after school, I would take her to Explore Learning to do extra like functional skills. And I would sit in Costa Coffee. So there's like a supermarket where you could do this, right? It was brilliant. You could do your shopping, you could drop your kid in, like some extra lessons. But for me, I wouldn't do the shopping. I would just sit in, get my laptop up for an hour. I would have an hour and I would have certain things that I wanted to achieve in that hour. I might be doing a mix or something like that. I would open the laptop and then I would use that time. There was things like ballet. I used to sit with the parents with my laptop on this horrible hard wooden bench, right, in this old dance place. And I would have my headphones on and I would be finishing or writing music, taking her to tutors or violin lesson. I would sit in the car and I would do the music, or I would sit in the place where she was getting taught and I'd do that. And there's all these little bits of time that I could use to do that. And that was just like a wonderful thing. I finished so many tracks in coffee shops and sitting in various classes. It's quite amazing what you can do. So the other thing is when we're splurging as well. So don't, when we start, don't think that you have to kind of finish anything, okay? Just start and make something. So even if it's 8 bars, that's fine, because we're going to work out through the process of how we can expand on this, okay? And also limit the sound palette. So, all right, so this is good. So the other thing you can do that I would love to see in Discord is when you're making music, even if it's snippets, and some of you have done this before, is you can just share little bits of your music with people. And that's another great way that's going to keep you motivated, that's going to kind of get you back, because at the end of the day, the community is going to support you. So just doing little posts of your music is a great way. And I'm kind of doing that now. So all of my little guitar jams and stuff, you'll probably notice this on the shorts, I'm just creating into like 8, 15 second, 20 seconds, very rarely a minute, because that's just nobody will watch it. But just very short snippets that I put up, and it's a great way to kind of keep practicing, keep motivating, because it keeps me motivated. I see that other people are listening to it. I'm getting thumbs up, and it's encouraging me to keep going and keep doing this thing and keep improving. The other thing is the accountability partners. So not only can you use the Discord that I've set up, but you can also have, an accountability partner. So another producer, or maybe the missus. They're really good at holding you accountable, I find. So find an accountability partner. And what I'd like to see everybody do, and I know sort of like, I don't want anybody to think, because doing your music at a time when you're making a habit, you want to be thinking about a time where that time is your time and everybody around you understands that. That's why getting up in the morning is another good thing, because nobody wants to get up in the morning. They want to stay in bed. So it's a great time to make music. And I'm allowed to have this time. Nobody messes with it, I'm not being told to do jobs. I'm not doing anything like that. And in adult life, okay, there are many jobs that need doing, distractions, work, all these kind of things can, impact on what we're trying to do. So do think of a time that you can make your own time, okay? And just let everybody understand that that's what you're doing, okay? Because what we're trying to do is just try and do something on a daily basis. So never miss twice. Try never to miss twice. Having said that, if you do miss a session, okay, you've got to think about, like, why did I miss a session? And what we're going to talk about is minimum viable commitment, okay, and how we can kind of get over that. And obviously, you've got to celebrate any sort of small wins and stuff like that. You know, you just got to be good to yourself, haven't you? Right, 10 minutes a day is enough. So when we're talking about minimum viable commitment, what I want is everybody, and preferably you'd set this in the chat, right? But I'll tell you my story, because all the time this happens, okay? Somebody will come into the coaching group and they'll start making music, and then I'll say, right, what have you done? Oh, I missed a few days, right? Or I missed 3 days and I just completely fell off. I'm like, why? Well, because I didn't have like 4 hours a day to produce anything. And that's just ridiculous, isn't it? When you think about it, you don't need that amount of time. So, I'll start saying, well, how much time do you need? And they'll say, well, I could definitely do an hour, maybe 2 hours. And I do, like, this is that people say this thinking that, like, that's the time that they need, that's the smallest amount of time. Sure enough, they'll go off and they'll start missing sessions, and it's like, right, okay, so realistically, right, if you think of music as something that's keeping you alive, right, how long, or like brushing your teeth, if you don't brush your teeth will rot and fall out, right, if you keep missing it. In order to keep that habit going, as if your life depended on it, but you can just do it for as long or as short as you want. How long can you do it for? I'll be like, half an hour. And then, sure enough, a few sessions may get missed, right? And it's like, well, what time should it be? 15 minutes, right? Now, what that proves to you, okay, is that you can make music in a short time. We don't need a long time. What used to happen to me is I'd think, well, I haven't got 6 hours, so I'm not even going to attempt to make anything. When my minimum viable commitment went to 5 minutes, right, really 5 minutes, I ended up on 5 minutes, and I was releasing like loads of tracks, by the way. I ended up in 5 minutes. Once I got over my ego, right, which I had, I was like really, really frustrated. When I got over the 5 minutes, it was such a liberating thing, because, I was in the car and I think I've got like 10, 15 minutes between session here, right? I'll just quickly, and I'll just quickly go. What I would do is I would go for something that I was mixing. I would go for decisions that were concrete binary, which we talked about. So like mixing's a good one for that. And I think, I'll just EQ that snare or something, or I'll just do some leveling on the vocals or a few little edits or something like that. And I'd have my list, and then I would have like timings on them as well. So, I could just go a couple of minutes for this, and I'd be in flow and I'd get a few things done. And sure enough, by the time I'd get home, right, like I would have like the list done. So whatever I was planning to do in the evening that day, that kind of job would be done. So it's amazing how sort of like the short times can like impact, And again, all of this you can apply to, practicing your instrument, guitar, because I apply all of this to my guitar playing now, because that's something I'm very, very focused on at the minute. And I'm wanting to improve as quickly as I can, all right? So all of this is like, what I do. So the consistency thing is very, very important. I can't, stress that enough, all right? And there's no such thing as not enough time. There's any amount, tiny little bits of time are perfectly fine. So I have a whole thing on guitar micro practicing. So if I'm sitting about twiddling my fingers, I'll just pick a guitar up and I'll have for that day a certain thing that I'm going to be practicing, okay? Even if it's going up and down a pentatonic scale, 2 notes per string, okay? In position 1, I'll do it. Or I'll identify, what position, let's have a think. Position 4 is a bit weak, right? I need to do that. So then I'll just, rather than do nothing, if there's a guitar there out, I'll pick it up and I'll go, I need to do position 4, and that's what I'll do for that day. And the other thing is these shorter times, right? Because there is less demand on you, you're more relaxed. Now, what will happen is you'll do your 5 minutes, right? And you'll think, I'm in flow now, I'm just going to keep going. And just let that happen, You don't, if you don't have to stop, don't stop, just keep going and enjoy being in flow. The other thing I would say about flow as well, that being in the zone, it's not a magical moment. You can be in flow as many times as you want. Okay, you can have it over and over again. What I would do is if I knew I had a period of time, like a couple of hours or something like that, I would do like Pomodoro technique. I would like time 25 minutes, rest for 5, 25 minutes, rest for 5, and I would do that on a timer. So you can do things like that, or I would set the timer once for your 5 minutes or whatever, and then just keep going till I eventually ran out of flow, stop, have a break, and then get back into it. But you can chain those events together. There's no, it's not exhaustible. You can be in flow as much as you want all day. And like, I have a job where I'm in flow all the time. I remember having a Fitbit and like looking at my heart rate was like low all day long. I was like ticking over like 60s in the 50s kind of area because I'm just so relaxed and playing and in the moment. Amazing. Now I will get back into the chat here, so I just need to make sure I get to the end of this. So we are going to talk about deliberate practice. I think I'll make this part of the focus when we do that. So deliberate practice, make sure that you do have specific aims. So when you go into a session, you want to know what you're doing. Now we're going to have a look at sort of the momentum routine that I use pre sort of the machine, the music making machine. So we'll have a look at like how I created momentum in a really quick kind of slap-handed way that I would finish tracks, right? Which works, okay? Now, the other interesting thing is working at your skill edge. Now, this is what splurging is all about. It's like by not having judgment and working as fast as you possibly can and putting yourself under that pressure, because what we're trying to do is to trying to get into the subconscious, okay, and trying to get those ideas out and then trying to realize them. And a lot of those times, that's when you're going to be really working at the edge. So, and also it's a very, as well as time, it's a very big part of conditions of flow, right? So psychologist, can't pronounce his name, Csikszentmihalyi and Stephen Kotler, I mean, they both had various ideas on this, but they would say that you have to be 4 to 7% out of your comfort zone. So it's not a massive number, but whatever you do, you have to make sure it's slightly out of your comfort zone. And remember the 1% improvement. So we're thinking of 1% improvement, we're thinking 4 to 7% skill to challenge ratio. So it's not, you don't want to be massively out of your depth. If you do that, you'll just disengage. If something's too easy for you, you'll disengage because you'll be bored. So this is part of it. So we have to come up with, and I think this is particularly difficult on guitar because often I'll do something that I really, really want to do and get excited about it, and then it's out of that 4 to 7% range, and then I have to kind of rejig the whole thing. Hybrid picking was like this because I assumed I would just be able to do it, right, for some bizarre reason, okay, and then it worked out a lot harder than what I thought. And I did struggle with it. So I ended up thinking I was in my comfort zone, being massively out of it, and then disengaging, and then not being able to go back to it for a while, and then coming back to it once I'd forgotten about like how difficult it was, and then actually planning for it properly. So bear that in mind, and that's something that's happened fairly, recently in my career. So it can be caught out. So do kind of prepare yourself for that. So, always doing things publicly massively helps. So, one thing that helped my playing and, writing music has definitely been the live streams, especially the fortnightly stuff. My guitar playing with Thomas, because I use that as a milestone. So when I get to that live, I'm always like working, towards something. And then I'm kind of using it in that live session, and then I'm evaluating, and then I'm improving on my playout. So in other words, it's a bit of a test, isn't it? Whatever kind of happens on those live sessions, I'll watch back and then look at like the areas of where I think I need to focus on for improvement, and then that's what I'll do for the next fortnight most of the time. So we'll have to come up with some sort of a plan. So identifying your producer, So this is what we need to have a look at, right? So you need to design. We need to think about designing your daily habits. So what time of the day is this going to happen? Optimizing your environment. So just a quick, we're not going to dive deep into that. You just need to start. So I don't want anybody suddenly rewire in the studios now. Okay, what you have to be doing is you just have to start doing the thing, and as the problems arise that are to do with environmental things, then just deal with them. Don't put up with them. Okay. And I mean, when I'm talking about this, I do daft things like I used to have my guitar here, right, and I'd have to twist around, get the guitar and plug it in, and subconsciously I wasn't playing the guitar as much because I had to twist around and I couldn't be bothered to do it. Now the guitar's here, right? So I'm just, it's there, pick it up, put it, and I can play it. And everything's, so we're looking for little things that cause friction, okay, that we can modify, okay? That's it. So always think about what's causing friction and how can I change that? That's all you're doing. What we don't want to be doing is completely unwiring the studio, building partition walls, getting it decorated, or building an extension to the house or anything like this, okay? All the time we're learning from our music and we're learning from our environment, and we're just over time optimizing it, okay? Just little bits at a time. What's happening is this whole ecosystem is developing with you incrementally. So think of a way to track your progress as well. So that's really important. So, tracking your progress, for me, is I use the automatic music machine, so I can see like where everything is. And then other ways I track my progress is watching myself playing back on live sessions. All right, that's the other way I track progress. And that's not just for like playing guitar, that's for my presenting skills. It's for my music making, it's for everything like that I use this channel for. So I just think videoing yourself is just a great way and an honest way of being able to track your progress. Probably not for everybody, it's probably a little bit too brutal, but it certainly lights a fire under your arse, I can tell you that. And get some accountability. So again, on the Discord, you can get accountability there. Or if you're really stuck, send me an email, right? You could send me an email saying, Hutch, Tim, I'm doing this. Will you hold me accountable? And I'll make a note of it, and I'll call you out once a week, and I'll say, look, on this live, have you done this? I mean, there's a great way, isn't it? And then some resources, okay? So books to read, okay, on Audible. I don't want you reading a book in your hand and not making music. But a book to have a look at, okay, is definitely James Clear's Atomic Habits. It's absolutely brilliant, okay? And that will tell you all about this. And, you'll think of wonderful ways to implement these ideas into your own situation is the point, because we're all different, aren't we? We've got what I'm calling temporarily now the music making machine is probably going to be the producer's forge. I'm just getting used to that. And at some point that'll be, I'll do a template, and then everybody will be able to have their own one, or I'll take you through a process of how to make it, which would probably be easier to do. And then the other thing is conditions for success. So what we're doing on a Monday, turn up, okay? And that's it. Now, got a little bit of time, and what I want to know is, can anybody just tell me what they think their biggest habit challenge will be? And also, I want you to all think about what your minimum viable commitment is. Those are the two main things that I would say we need to have dialed in. And I'm going to have a coffee, right? Catch up on the chat. Excellent. Right, so I'll post little snippets of me playing on IG also. Yeah, it's just a great thing. Just do it. Yep, some of history's best songs were just thought up in 5 minutes. Absolutely. So why is it taking us forever? And it's because, we've all got all these vast amounts of resources and plugins that it's causing us to have more decisions, isn't it? Like what Stelly's before, it's like there's too many plugins. Like how am I meant to decide anything? I can't decide because there's too many decisions to make. And that you haven't even started yet. It's like really hard work, isn't it? And we've all been there. So there's quite a bit of information that I've gone through there. I'll put the slides. I'll put the slides up on Discord later today. But what we need to do is we need to think about your minimum viable commitment. So how much time is everybody going to spend, right? And it would be great if some of you actually just put it in the chat. How much time can you spend on your music daily? This is 7 days a week. And it can be as short as you want. But the idea is I want everybody doing something every day. At least for the next month. Wow, have you seen the time? Right, so I like this. My minimum is set to 30 minutes. It has been for about 2 years now. It's a perfect amount of time for me. So there's Sean leading the way with minimum viable commitment. 30 minutes. Super important. It is Enzo, but we're not getting distracted with guitars today. I need you thinking about your minimum viable commitment. I only want to hear minimum viable commitments. Excellent. And there's another thing. So because Sean's got like a realistic minimum viable commitment, what he's actually finding is that he's doing more. So that's probably Sean will be getting into flow and just continuing. Going, wow. It's interesting because when I get into flow, I would say it's about an hour and a half I get out of it before I come out, before the session becomes like more thinky. And then I think, oh, I'm out of flow now. I'll just stop. And then you look at the clock and think, wow, like an hour and a half gone. Right. Enzo, so if your life depended on making music, you can guarantee that you can do 4 hours every day. If you can, that's brilliant. But see how you get on. So you're going to do 4 hours every day for the rest of your life, daily. That's the minimum viable commitment. It's something that you can do. So like Sean's got realistically half an hour, but he gets more out of it. Because what if you haven't got 4 hours a day? What are you going to do? Do you not do your session? This is the thing. So we have to think about that. Sorry to call you out on that, Enzo. But this is what I said, 4 hours. I'm selling my gear for a living, so I'm always around guitars. Excellent. What a job. But we're also talking about your minimum viable commitment being something that's structured. What if you live in the Arctic? Well, it shouldn't affect you. You just use the resources that you've got. You're going to be set up doing music, aren't you? If you've got electricity, great. If you haven't, you're going acoustic. Maybe record yourself on your phone. You know, there's always a way. But are you talking about time? Oh, I suppose you're talking about the time because it's 24 hours. All right, I see what you mean. 6 months of night. Well, you're just doing your music at night, aren't you? Like Stelly. But yeah, I mean, you're testing me out here. It's still a measurement of time, so you're going to do your minimum viable commitment, whatever time is there. Time is time, isn't it? Whether the sun's up or down. Anyway, guys, I'm going to have to go very soon. But there'll be a stream tomorrow morning, I think. Very likely going to be a guitar lesson. So have your guitars ready and we can continue a little bit of this discussion. Okay, so I hope you found it very interesting and I hope this kind of helps some people here who have been thinking about starting and trying to get started. And now you've got a kind of a little bit of motivation to do that. Yeah, hot. All right, guys, I'm off to do my walk. So take care and should be on tomorrow, I think. All right. Bye.